My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, then filed a false lawsuit claiming I stole $200, $0 from her family, and now we're fighting over our inherited mansion worth over $1 million. I can't believe who she's become. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this kind of story, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. It all started with what seemed like small signs, things I brushed off at first, thinking I was overreacting or just imagining it. But looking back, I realize now how obvious everything had become, like a slow unraveling of a carefully crafted lie. My wife and I had been together for over 10 years. We met in college, got married right after, and for most of that time, I genuinely believed we had something solid. She was the kind of woman everyone admired, beautiful, confident, sharp-tongued, but charming when she wanted to be. We had a big house, a couple of cars, a good life, and I thought that's all I needed. But then things started to change subtly at first, then more obviously. It started with little things, missing phone calls, late nights with work, and her being unusually secretive about her phone. She'd hide her messages, delete call logs, and get defensive if I asked her about who she was texting. I figured maybe I was just paranoid or maybe I had been working too much. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I trusted her, or at least I told myself I did. One day, I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I know it sounds invasive, but I was desperate for some clarity. I didn't find anything incriminating at first, just a lot of flirtatious texts with her best friend's husband, Mark. Nothing unusual there, except I noticed she had been texting someone else, someone I didn't recognize. An unfamiliar number. When I looked closer, I saw messages that made my stomach turn. They weren't just friendly, they were intimate, suggestive, talking about meeting up, about sex. That's when I finally realized something was seriously wrong. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I started observing more. Her behavior became even more erratic. She was dressing differently, spending more time at the gym, and always seemed on edge. When I was around, I found her phone again, and this time I saw a string of messages from the neighbor, Jason. They'd been texting late into the night, talking about secret moments, hiding from the world, and how much they wanted each other. It was clear they were having an affair. I couldn't believe it. My wife, who used to be so bitchy and sharp-tongued, had turned into this sneaky, lying woman. And Jason, our neighbor, he was the kind of guy who always acted like he was better than everyone else, but I guess he's just as much of a snake. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt sick, furious, and shattered all at once. How could she do this? How could she betray me after everything we built? I thought I knew her, but now I see I was blind. The worst part was the lies she told afterward. When I confronted her with the evidence, didn't even deny it at first. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk and said, "Oh, come on, it's not like I cheated on you with some random guy. It's just sex, and it doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting. You're just jealous because I'm still beautiful and desirable." That's when I realized she had no remorse, no shame. She was just trying to gaslight me, make me feel like I was the crazy one. But I was. I knew what I saw, and I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. That confrontation was the beginning of the end. I told her I wanted answers, that I deserved honesty, and she just laughed. That I was paranoid, that I was insecure, that I was imagining things. But I had proof, screenshots, messages, her own words, and I refused to be made a fool of. I told her that I wasn't going to tolerate betrayal, not from her, not from anyone. That was when she started to get even more bitchy, throwing accusations back at me, claiming I was controlling, jealous, insecure. She tried to turn everything around as if she was the victim. But I knew better. The emotional toll hit me hard. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I was angry at her, furious that she could do this to us. But I also felt betrayed, hurt, and honestly kind of devastated. I had trusted her for so long, and now I realized I was just a fool. I kept replaying all the moments, all the signs I missed, and it just made me more bitter. I started questioning everything, our past, our future, whether I even knew who she really was. In the midst of all this chaos, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I needed to think about what's next, whether to fight for us, to divorce, or to do something more calculated. But one thing was clear. I was done being the naive husband. The betrayal had opened my eyes, and I knew I'd have to come up with a plan to handle this mess. Because with her bitchy attitude and lies was not going to walk all over me. Not anymore. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at the same way. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, or at least thought I did, had turned into someone I barely recognized. Her words, her smirks, the way she dismissed everything I brought up, they all felt like punches in my stomach. I was furious, yes, but underneath the rage there was a deep, gnawing pain. How could she do this to us, to me? I kept thinking about all those years we spent building a life together, only to find out she'd been sneaking around with Jason, our neighbor, behind my back. I knew I needed to do something, but I also knew I couldn't just rush in blindly. That's not who I am. I started gathering evidence. I installed a hidden camera in the living room just to see if she'd slip up again. I wanted to catch her red-handed, not just relying on her words or text messages. I also started digging into her phone more carefully, going through her social media accounts and messages. I needed to be sure, and I needed proof that I could use, either to confront her more forcefully or to prepare for whatever legal battles might come. In the meantime, was still acting like everything was normal, at least on the surface. She'd go out with friends, pretend nothing was wrong, throw around her bitchy attitude whenever I tried to talk about us. But I saw through it. I saw the cracks in her facade. One evening I followed her when she said she was meeting a friend for drinks. I drove past her favorite bar and saw her in the back booth with Jason, laughing, touching his arm like they'd been doing this forever. That was the night I knew I had to escalate my plans. I started talking to a lawyer. I wanted to know my rights, what I could do legally if she tried to take me for everything, because I suspected she was already plotting something. She'd been acting weird about money lately, asking for loans, making excuses not to pay bills, and suddenly claiming she wanted a divorce out of nowhere. It was like she was setting the stage for a bigger game, and I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. One thing I noticed was how she kept insisting I was controlling, jealous, insecure. She'd say I was overreacting, that I was imagining things, that I was just paranoid. But I had the evidence now, and I wasn't going to let her gaslight me anymore. I started documenting everything. The texts, the time she left the house, her strange behavior. I even hired a private investigator just to confirm what I already knew. She was having an affair, and Jason was at the heart of it. Things got even messier when she accused me of stealing money from her family. She claimed I had taken $200, $0 from her parents' estate without telling her, trying to paint me as some kind of thief. I was stunned. I never touched that money. I had no reason to. But being the bitchy liar she was, spun that story to make herself look innocent. She filed a false lawsuit claiming I had stolen the money and that I was a criminal. It was her way of destroying me, I think. She wanted to ruin me financially, emotionally, everything. The legal battle started to take over our lives. I hired my own lawyer and we began fighting her in court. I had to prove I didn't steal the money. Meanwhile, the truth about her affair started to come out more and more: texts, photos, even witness statements from neighbors who saw her sneaking around with Jason. But kept lying, kept spinning her web of bullshit, claiming I was the bad guy. She threw everything she had, her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, trying to keep her grip on the situation. The thing that hurt most was how she turned the tables on me. She accused me of being a terrible husband, of abusing her, of controlling her. She even tried to claim I was violent, which was completely false. I never laid a finger on her. That was just her way of framing herself as the victim, so she could justify her actions and hide her affair. It was a sick, calculated move, and it made me realize how deep her lies went. Through all this chaos, I started to feel numb. I'd go from furious to hopeless, then back again. I couldn't believe how much she'd changed. This bitchy, manipulative woman who'd lie through her teeth just to save herself. I felt betrayed, not just by her cheating, but by the way she tried to destroy me with lies and deception. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? How did I go from trusting her to suspecting her of outright betrayal and theft? It was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But I knew I had to stay strong. I had to fight for what was right, my reputation, my integrity, my life. I started planning my next steps carefully. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, not anymore. I was going to expose her lies, win this legal battle, and get my life back. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was done being the naive husband. From now on, I was playing for keeps. The more I dug into her lies and the mess she'd created, the clearer it became just how far I was willing to go to keep her secrets hidden. Every new piece of evidence I uncovered felt like a punch in the gut, but at the same time it fueled my determination. I wasn't about to let her destroy everything we'd built: our marriage, my reputation, my sanity. The legal battle was escalating, and I had to be strategic, patient, and ruthless if I wanted to come out of this on top. One morning, I woke up to find a letter slipped under the door. It was from her lawyer, threatening to escalate the lawsuit and claiming I was trying to sabotage her reputation. I knew she was trying to spin everything against me, saying I was violent, controlling, or even that I'd stolen more money. It was classic, always twisting the truth to fit her narrative. I didn't bother to respond right away. I knew I needed a game plan, and that meant gathering even more dirt, evidence, and legal backup. In the meantime, behavior grew more erratic. She started making demands. She wanted a divorce immediately, demanded full custody of the house, and insisted she was the victim here. She claimed I was abusive, manipulative, and that I'd been cheating on her too. I just shook my head every time I heard her spin her lies. She was good at it, I'll give her that, but I wasn't falling for it. I'd seen through her act from the start. Then came the real shocker. She filed a lawsuit claiming I stole $200, $0 from her family's inheritance. That was her big move, her way of trying to ruin me financially. I was stunned. I never touched that money. It was supposed to be for our future, for investments, for security. However, was spinning a different story. She claimed I had secretly taken it, that I was a criminal trying to hide my tracks. I knew this was her attempt to discredit me, to make me look like a thief so she could claim everything. I had to act fast. I hired a forensic accountant to review our finances. They confirmed I had no connection to the missing inheritance. The money was there, untouched, in our account. This entire story was fabricated. But she kept lying, insisting she had proof I was lying, that I was a thief. It was maddening. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go, lying, cheating, manipulating the court, even trying to turn our friends and family against me. Meanwhile, I started to realize something else. This obsession with money was more than just greed. It was her weapon, her shield, her way of controlling the situation. She'd been draining our joint accounts, asking for loans, making me pay for everything, then turning around and accusing me of stealing her family's inheritance. It was all a twisted game to her. I saw her for what she was, an opportunist who'd do anything, say anything, to get what she wanted. One night, I decided to confront her directly. I told her I knew she was lying, that I had all the evidence, and that I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I told her she could keep pretending, keep lying, but I'd fight her every step of the way. That was when she snapped. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk and said, "You're just jealous because I still look good and I still have options. You're a nobody. You're going to lose everything." That comment hit me hard, but I also realized she was desperate. Desperate to hold onto her lies, her money, her power. I started planning my next move. I knew I needed to expose her publicly, but I also had to be careful. She was dangerous. She'd lie, manipulate, and try to destroy me if she thought she could get away with it. I decided to leak some of her texts and messages to a close friend I trusted, someone who could confirm her affair with Jason. I wanted to show the court, the judge, and everyone involved that was not just unfaithful but also manipulative and dishonest. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd been lying about her own life. She claimed she was a victim, but I saw her for what she really was: a woman who'd betrayed her vows, lied to her family, and tried to manipulate everyone around her to get what she wanted. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her obsession with money, it all painted a picture of someone I no longer recognized. As I sat there, reviewing everything, I felt a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and determination. I knew I couldn't undo what had been done, but I could control how I responded. I was going to fight for my reputation, my dignity, and my future. I wasn't going to let destroy me, no matter how much she lied, manipulated, or tried to play the victim. I had to be stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than her, because at the end of the day I knew the truth. And the truth was, she was the biggest liar and manipulator in this entire mess. By the time I reached this point, I was exhausted but more determined than ever. The legal battle was dragging on, and lies were becoming more elaborate. She was now claiming I had physically assaulted her, even though I'd never laid a finger on her. She produced fake bruises and staged scenes to make it look like I was violent. I knew she was trying to sway the court, to paint herself as the innocent victim, but I had enough evidence to counter her claims. Still, her bitchy attitude and manipulations kept throwing new twists into the story. I started to realize that obsession with control extended beyond just the legal fight. She was also trying to turn our friends and family against me. She'd call them crying, telling her version of the story. How I was a terrible husband, how I was abusive, how I'd stolen money from her family, and how she was afraid for her safety. Some of them believed her, which was infuriating. But I also had allies, people who saw through her lies and knew the truth. I made sure to document every false statement she made, every manipulation, every attempt to smear my name. One day, I received a call from her lawyer trying to settle out of court. Wanted half of everything, our house, the inheritance, and even a large sum of money for emotional damages. I knew this was her final shot at squeezing me dry. I refused outright. I was done playing her game. I told her lawyer I'd fight her in court and expose her for the lying, manipulative bitch she was. I was prepared to go all the way, public records, witnesses, everything I could gather. Meanwhile, behavior grew even more hostile. She started showing up unannounced at my office, making scenes, trying to intimidate me into giving up. She'd scream, call me names, and accuse me of being a terrible person. She even started spreading rumors about my fidelity, trying to damage my reputation further. It was clear she was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to win, but I refused to be bullied. One particular event pushed me over the edge. Had her sister, Lisa, come over to try to sway me into dropping the case. Lisa was a woman I once trusted, but now she was just another pawn in its game. She told me I needed to let it go, that was suffering, and that I should be the bigger man. I looked her straight in the eye and told her I wasn't about to let my life be ruined by a woman who lied and cheated her way through everything. I told her I fight for my reputation, my money, and my dignity. That's when Lisa finally saw that I was serious, that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. It was during this time that I decided to take a more aggressive stance. I hired a private investigator to dig into his finances and her recent activities. I wanted to know if she was planning any more moves to hurt me. The pie uncovered some shocking things. She had been secretly transferring money from our joint accounts into her sister's name, trying to hide her assets, and even making arrangements to sell the mansion behind my back. It was like she was trying to wipe out everything I cared about, all while pretending to be the innocent victim. The worst part was the realization that she had no remorse. Her bitchy attitude persisted, and she continued to lie, spin, and manipulate. Her lies about the inheritance, the fake assault allegations, the affair with Jason, all of it was part of her plan to control the narrative. I knew I had to act fast before she managed to pull off something even worse. I sat down with my lawyer and drafted a plan to expose her lies publicly, to get a court order to freeze her assets, and to prevent her from selling the house without my consent. As the court date drew nearer, I felt a mixture of anxiety and relief. I knew I had enough evidence to prove her lies, but I also understood how dangerous she could be. She was relentless, a true bitch in every sense of the word, and she'd stop at nothing to destroy me if she thought she could get away with it. I had to be smarter, more strategic, and prepared for the worst. But deep down, I knew that I was done being the naive husband who trusted blindly. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. I used to think love and trust were enough, but I see that sometimes people are just out for themselves, willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what they want. My wife was one of those people, and I learned that in the worst way possible. Still, I also learned that the only way to survive such a betrayal is to fight back, to expose the truth, and to never let anyone control your life without a fight. I refuse to be the victim anymore. I'm ready to take back what's mine and move forward no matter what it takes. The court date finally arrived after months of legal battles, evidence gathering, and endless sleepless nights. I won't lie, I was a nervous wreck. Part of me still couldn't believe I was living through this nightmare. Of course, showed up with her usual bitchy smirk, dressed to impress, acting as if she was the victim. Jason was there too, looking smug, probably thinking he'd gotten away with everything. But I was ready. I had everything laid out, screenshots, bank statements, witness testimonies, everything that proved her lies and manipulations. When the judge called the case, I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger. I took the stand first, laying out my side of the story calmly but firmly. I explained how I'd been lying about the inheritance, forging documents, transferring money behind my back, and staging false allegations of violence. I presented all my evidence, and I watched her face fall as her lies started crumbling under the weight of reality. She tried to interrupt, to spin her web of bullshit, but the judge was having none of it. I could tell she was panicking. Then it was turn. She tried her usual tactics, pretending to be innocent, crying fake tears, claiming she was the victim of my controlling behavior. She even tried to argue that I was cheating on her, which was laughable considering I had been busy compiling evidence against her. Her lawyer was whispering furiously, probably telling her to stay calm or to come up with a new lie. But her voice was shaky, and her words kept contradicting her previous statements. It was obvious she was losing control. The judge finally asked her directly about the forged documents, the transferred money, and her affair with Jason's face went pale and she stumbled over her words. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. When my lawyer presented the bank statements, the chat logs, the witness testimonies, it was clear she had nothing left to lie about. The court saw her for what she was, a manipulative, lying bitch who'd done everything in her power to destroy me. As the judge made her ruling, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. She ordered to return the stolen money, to pay damages for defamation, and to cease all attempts to sell or transfer our assets without my consent. The court also granted me temporary custody of the mansion, which was a huge win. I knew this wasn't the end, still be more battles to come, but for now I felt vindicated. After the hearing, stormed out, screaming and cursing. Jason was nowhere to be seen, probably realizing he'd been caught in the crossfire. I stayed behind, feeling exhausted but victorious. I knew this victory was just one step in a long road to rebuilding my life. I also knew that bitchy attitude and manipulations wouldn't stop her from trying to come back with some new scheme. But I was prepared. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and the support of friends who saw through her lies. What struck me most was how much I'd changed, how I'd gone from a naive, trusting husband to someone who fights back fiercely when betrayed. I realized that sometimes people will do anything to get what they want, even if it means lying, cheating, or destroying everything around them. And I learned that the only way to survive such a betrayal is to be relentless, to expose their lies, and to never let them control your life again. Now, sitting in my empty house, I feel a strange mix of relief and sadness. I'm glad I stood my ground, but I also can't help but wonder how someone I loved could turn into such a manipulative, vindictive person. I guess I'll never fully understand her. What I do know is that I'm finally free, free from her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations. And as I look toward the future, I realize I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be. I've learned that trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep, but in the end, truth always comes out. And I will never let anyone take away my peace again. In the aftermath of everything, I've had a lot of time to reflect. The house is quiet now. No more screaming matches, no more lies, no more bitching her way through every conversation. I finally feel like I can breathe again. But honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully recover from the betrayal. Trust, once shattered like that, leaves scars that don't fade easily. Still, I've learned some hard lessons that I won't forget. The biggest one is that people are capable of the most surprising, disgusting things when they're desperate. Was a perfect example. Bitchy, manipulative, willing to lie and cheat her way through life if it meant getting what she wanted. Her obsession with money, her lies about the inheritance, her affair with Jason. None of it was about love or even just rebellion. It was about control, greed, and a desperate need to be the victim. Watching her turn into this scheming, vindictive woman made me realize how dangerous betrayal can be, especially when it's masked behind a pretty face and bitchy attitude. I also learned that the only way to fight back is with honesty and relentless determination. I knew I couldn't just sit back and hope things would work out. Instead, I gathered evidence, stayed calm, and used the law to my advantage. That legal victory was a huge relief, but it also showed me that sometimes you have to fight dirty, within the boundaries of the law, of course, to protect yourself from people like. Most importantly, I learned that I need to focus on myself now. I've spent so much time worrying about her lies, her manipulations, and her schemes that I forgot about my own well-being. The betrayal hurt, but it also made me realize I need to rebuild my life from the ground up. I've started therapy, reconnecting with friends, and focusing on my career. I want to be the best version of myself, strong, independent, and wary of trusting blindly again. I can't say I'm completely healed, but I am hopeful. This experience has taught me to be more cautious, more aware of the signs of deception, and to stand up for myself no matter what. I see now that some people are just bitchy manipulators who will lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what they want. And I refuse to be one of those people. So, if you're ever in a situation like this, trust your instincts, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for your truth. Because in the end, honesty and resilience are what matter most. It's gone, her lies exposed, and I'm finally free from her bitchy, manipulative grip. Life is going to be different now, but I'm ready for it, stronger, wiser, and finally at peace.